Welcome to episode 435 of the Microsoft Cloud IT Pro Podcast, recorded live on August 24, 2026. This is a show about Microsoft 365 and Azure from the perspective of IT pros and end users, where we discuss a topic or recent news and how it relates to you. Today, Ben and Scott take a lap around what's new in Power BI, starting with the two MCP servers now in preview, one local and one remote, that can help you clean up your data model, write DAX for you, and turn a messy pile of tables into an actual usable semantic model. From there, we dive into how you can start using Power BI with GitHub, DevOps, or other Git repositories to help you manage updates, changes, and even collaboratively work on Power BI workbooks. Another sweltering 90-degree day in Florida before the sun even comes up. This is just not... I don't know why people decided Florida was a good place to live.
Who knows? First place they landed and they thought there was a fountain of youth here.
Yeah.
It turns out it was not a fountain of youth. It was a fountain of like mosquito diseases, but same difference.
Anyways, we're not here to talk about heat, humidity, weather, but all of that ties into data, which we are going to talk about. Wow, how was that? Yeah.
You're getting so much better at these.
I'm trying, Scott. And a trip down memory lane. Like, this is a product that's been out for a while, and I don't know that we've talked about this recently.
We haven't. We've talked about, well, we're going to talk about Power BI today. So we're going to talk about some new things that have come in Power BI. I think you were introducing me to some things, and I was introducing you to some things. And it was just very interesting how much it has changed over time. And I think if you've been stuck in your ways of using Power BI in like one modality, like there's a whole bunch of new things that are out there and available to you, from team collaboration to MCP servers, like plural, that can help you out and accelerate your pretty visualizations in Power BI. Well, really your like data analysis, right? And bringing things to bear.
Yeah, I would say just everything. Like for me, I don't spend a ton of time in Power BI. Every once in a while it comes up or I'm working on something or I want some reports. And this kind of came up because I started playing with it for a client that kind of wanted a POC. And there are some things that have definitely gotten easier. And then some things that you were informing me about too that I had missed. So where should we start with Power BI today?
Why don't we start with the MCP servers and kind of do a little trip around the block there? Because there's some other stuff that we want to talk about later when it comes to like collaboration and things like that. But I think we talk about that later because the MCP server, at least one of them, can be super helpful for interacting with that new mode for Power BI development. So let's start with the servers. Big overview, high level overview. There's two MCP servers for Power BI. There's a local and a remote. So you've got different modes to think about when you're interacting with Power BI, the service, versus developing Power BI through the Power BI app. And maybe you're working with like PBIP files. You need help creating measures. Maybe DAX isn't like your strong suit, but you've run into it kind of thing if you're just getting started with Power BI. So there's a bunch of kind of niceties across both of those servers. So maybe we'll start with the local one and then we can kind of work our way towards the service one. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me. And the local one is the one that I think it was the local one that I spent the most time playing with. Because it was, to your point, I had a client that wanted to start building some reports on, and it was actually QuickBooks data, QuickBooks Online. And Microsoft used to have this nice QuickBooks Online data connector built right into Power BI, and they got rid of it. So I had to go find other options and ended up finding a third party that I was able to connect to the Power BI or the QuickBooks Online APIs, dump content into Data Lake, but then it was a lot of data. And I will say QuickBooks Online, from looking at the data, is not the most intuitive in terms of the databases and how they structure some of the data. And I very quickly got overwhelmed. Again, I don't do Power BI a ton. I don't do QuickBooks Online data a ton. And I got to this point where I'm like, I have like 50 tables And just a glimpse into it, like this was looking at projects in QuickBooks Online, and projects in QuickBooks Online end up in your customer table with like a flag that it's a project and not actually a customer or a project for a customer. Like super weird. And I was like, I needed help. I was like, I don't know how to sort through all this data. There is a ton of data here. How can I start digging through it? And I was like, ooh, I wonder if Power BI has an MCP server. And lo and behold, here was this local MCP server I could go hook up.
Yeah, the local one is super nifty. So for those that haven't played with it, you can go ahead and wire this up to, a couple different things. Like it really just requires any harness that can allow you to interact with a local MCP. So Claude on the desktop, I believe you still have to be licensed for those to come through. But Claude Code, GitHub Copilot, Anti-Gravity, Codex, things like that. So you can just go out. There's instructions on GitHub to wire it up. It was a little bit of a rough start when this first came out, but way easier to kind of configure and wire up to everything that's out there now. But what the local MCP server does is kind of cool. So if you're sitting there and say you're working in a PBIX file, so you've actually got Power BI open and you're sitting and you're working with an active file, you can just go into your LLM interaction harness, whatever it happens to be, and you can do things like, hey, Power BI MCP server, connect to my local file. And it knows that Power BI is open and it's able to go and interact with that PBIX file. So you can do things like you can say, maybe look at my schema and tell me anything that I should fix with my relationships. Like Power BI can get a little weird sometimes, right? When it comes to the whole star schema thing and one-to-one, and sometimes it just wants to do many-to-manys, and you're like sitting there fighting it, like what's wrong with the model, what's going on that I just can't work with it. So it's super good for things like that. Like it basically has inherent knowledge of Power BI modeling best practices because it's kind of grounded and built on top of all that. The other one that I really liked with it is I can figure out Power Query all day. Like I'm used to it from Excel and then into Power BI, things like that. I'm not good at all at DAX. Anytime I have to go look up and especially get into like authoring like DAX, my brain just doesn't work that way. Like it doesn't work for me. But that Power BI MCP server, the local one, it lets you not only validate DAX functions that are out there, but it can help you write DAX queries against your model. It can do things like go write a bunch of measures for you. So say you've never worked with measures and they're confusing you for the DAX and things that comes along. You can do something like, hey, go connect to my local file and suggest what measures I should have in this model. Or maybe like kind of popular measures that you should have. Maybe it's built, like you said, on like Intuit data, like sales data, invoices, things like that. So you'll know, like you might want measures around like sales by week, sales by month, sales by year kind of thing. You just say, hey, go create these measures for me in this table, or keep the measures in the source tables, however you want to do it. And it will go and spin those things up. Let's see what else. It will troubleshoot calculations. That is super helpful. If you've ever been working with like trying to like round things out, convert, say from like a double to a percentage, things like that. Super helpful for all that.
I have a public safety message going off.
Yep, you're getting an alert.
I agree. And part of what I was too was like, I needed to create a semantic model and I had to narrow down these 44 tables. And that's where I started using it. I had a report, and it was interesting. Like I had a report in Power BI that I wanted to replicate, and I had all my data. So I was like, no, I have all the data. I have a report of what I want it to look like. And I was able to go feed it into Claude, say, I have this report. Here's the data. I need to essentially recreate this report, help walk me through it. And it was able to go in and help me generate a semantic model and pull in the different tables from my data lake and my lake house and all of that and really narrow it down. So at the end of the day, I didn't have 44 tables. It built the 6 I needed with the relationships between all of them. And then it was able to go in and and I actually told it I wanted to understand it more. So I was like, just give me the instructions. How do I take this data and build my PBIX file? So I didn't have it build the whole table or the whole report for me. I just had it walk me step by step of what's in each table, what table goes in which chart, what charts should I use, how do I structure my filters, and actually almost had it teach me how I wanted to take the data and the models it had built and build my PBIX report or the PBIX file, build the report in Power BI so I could understand it all. And then even some notebooks that I needed running behind the scenes to do some things from data lake to lake houses and all of that. So that's where I really found a lot of benefit from that MCP server is... Hey, Scott, I love your puppy in the background.
If everybody's hearing squeakers, that's it.
Really going through and helping me go from all of that extra data that I didn't necessarily need to just narrow it down to the data I need and how I want to build the report and what notebooks I need and all of that.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to go about those things. So you can use... I think there's 2 ways that you can generally use AI and then certainly these MCP servers, things like that. So you can either have them do the work for you or you can learn how to do the work yourself and have this be kind of an aid or an accelerator for you. And once you've made a decision, go in a certain direction. Sir. So I think it is super helpful for that iterative process of coming through. I think, like I said, the MCP server is grounded in things like the public docs. It understands best practices. It knows what to do, or what to do. You might have to teach it a little bit about your model. I've been kind of impressed at what it's been able to infer just by throwing some raw tables and things at it. And Power BI is generally pretty good about that anyway, right? If I've got sale date in this table and the field date of sale in this table, sometimes it can figure out that, hey, these 2 things are in fact dates for the same table, maybe for the same sale. Maybe one was like a fact and a dimension, things like that. So it can definitely do it and get you there. So that's all good. So you've got a local MCP server. Author your files locally, work with them locally. You get to be kind of human in the loop and go back and forth with them. And then there's also a remote MCP server. So you can use that for working with your semantic models that are already loaded up into the Power BI service, things like that. So if you're working, say, with, like I said, like a semantic model, it's already up there. Maybe you've got access to it. You want to go and maybe create a new Power BI report, dashboard, something like that, based on an existing semantic model. It can go up there and do very similar things. It can help you generate, execute DAX queries, natural language conversations, all that kind of stuff.
The other one where I think the remote MCP server could help is one of the things I've found AI to be generally good at, I would say doesn't tend to hallucinate nearly as much, is just analyzing data, looking over data and saying, here's all my data, help me sort through it, sift through it, find certain trends in it, that type of stuff. And I think that's where this remote MCP server could be nice too, because like you said, it can go connect to those semantic models. So even if you're just trying to understand your data a little bit more, just using it to go query that data, ask questions about your data, I found, not to knock on Microsoft, but it's totally a knock on Microsoft, is the Copilot stuff in Power BI. I did try that first and it was trash. I could not get it to work and do what I wanted to. And when I switched to these MCP servers for query tools and hooked it up to Claude, I had a lot more success with it. So if you've used Copilot and Power BI and you're frustrated, I would say go give this a try, because I definitely had a lot better luck with this. And again, the remote MCP server, great for going in and looking through data. I do want to say too, Scott, both of these are still in preview. So we need to put our normal preview disclaimer on it. These are both preview. There's a comparison too between the remote MCP and local MCP that we'll link to in the show notes, because there are a few differences there in terms of like what you can use for authentication. It talks about the different tools that are available, a few things there. If you are trying to figure out, well, do I need the local? Do I need the remote? Or if one thing doesn't work in one of them, what does the other one do, etc.
There are some additional steps along the way as well. So I didn't run into some of this until I read the documentation, because you don't always like click all the buttons in the ribbon and things like that in Power BI. So there's this kind of front matter or front loaded preparation step to go and prepare your data for AI. So if you're working both with the local MCP server or the remote one, Power BI local at least has a button, go and prepare your data for AI. And you can go and have it generate like AI ready schemas. So you have to have Power BI Q&A enabled to be able to go and do this. But you can just run through this set of steps to kind of prepare your data for AI. It's what the button says. It's what everything guides you into. And it'll help you kind of optimize your schema and optimize your semantic model for Copilot, or more broadly for LLMs, to be able to come in and understand all of this stuff. Yeah, so I don't know if you've run through that step yet.
I don't think I did run through that step. I'm going to have to go back and look at that.
It will do things like, remember I was talking about like help you with your schema, maybe get it back to like a real like star schema kind of thing. So it can help you simplify your schema. It can remove redundant fields, redundant measures, things like that. And then part of it is you're kind of like grounding it and asking it along the, or it's asking you along the way, like, hey, I did this summarization. Does this look right to you? And you can say yes or no. And go back and pivot. So it's another way also to kind of not only clean up your schema, but verify things like measure logic and DAX, and all of that is ready. And then as part of that, you're going to go through and you're going to mark things as verified answers, so that if somebody else is using your model, they can also come in. And you'll know that like consumers of your model who are maybe using like Power BI Q&A or just Copilot, things like that through VS Code, maybe they're using the MCP server and hooking up, that they're getting the right answer all along the way.
I'm glad to see these MCPs too. I think I've talked about it before. I more and more as people create MCPs, I think that's, you get so much flexibility out of MCPs in terms of what you want to do with data. I would much rather see a whole bunch of people build a whole bunch of MCPs than everybody build all their own AI stuff, and just let me get my data wherever I want to. Let me choose my own harness, choose my own AI platform, and give me an MCP rather than like making me stay in your tool or your own specialized AI thing. I also get it from a marketing perspective. Everybody wants your eyes in their product, so they want you to stay in theirs for their AI. The more and more I can find MCPs, makes me happy.
We could have a whole nother talk on.
We could have a whole other talk on that.
MCPs and death of SaaS and things like that.
Should we move on from MCPs to something else you told me about that I had kind of completely missed when it came to Power BI?
Like I said, once you have these MCPs in place, now you've got kind of a little bit of a collaboration scenario going on, whether it's you as human in the loop, just you and kind of a model and the Power BI service going back and forth, things like that. But there's also the world where maybe you collaborate with other users, maybe other agents, things that are out there, right? You said kind of talking through like, hey, you enjoy being able to work with kind of like model and harness of your choice kind of thing. So that's definitely another consideration, is now that you've got these things out there, like how can you use them with your existing harnesses, existing agents, things like that. So I forget when they added this. I turned it on as soon as they did, but there's an ability now in Power BI to work on collaborative files. So if everybody's familiar with a PBIX file, the kind of just raw file that encapsulates your Power BI report locally that you work with before you go and publish it to the service, or maybe you just hang with it locally and you never publish it to the service kind of thing. There's this new file format for Power BI, which is a it basically allows you to collaborate on these things, and it breaks down what is a single PBIX file into multiple files that all end up in this PBIP file. I do wonder what what they were thinking with the acronyms on the end there, but basically what a PBIP file is it makes the Power BI files basically human readable. So that now you can do things like you can store this, say in like GitHub, and collaborate back and forth with people. So like rather than me writing a PBIX and then I got to shut down Power BI and then maybe share you a link to it and then you go work in it and then the next time I open Power BI it's probably broken, or we both open it at the same time and we really screw each other up kind of thing. Now you can actually get into a collaborative workflow across these things. So there's no more having to email these things around, store them in a SharePoint site, anything like that. And because they're just raw files, I said you can store them in a Git repository. So now you get things like safe rollback. You get actual like versioning across things that are out there. But the really kind of maybe like next level thing you can do now is because you have these MCP servers also understand that new file format. So now you can have like agents that sit alongside you. So you could be like authoring one of these things and you could have an agent say that like runs daily and does like sanity checks on your DAX queries or things like that for you.
Yeah. If you're managing file storage today, you've probably felt the pressure. Refresh cycles are harder to plan, costs and complexity are increasing, especially as file workloads scale across regions. That's why Microsoft customers trust Nasuni. As an Azure-certified software, Nasuni provides a global file system designed for enterprise-scale environments, keeping file data secure, governed, and accessible across Azure environments without added infrastructure complexity. It's the foundation to keep your unstructured data stable, even as your infrastructure evolves. To see how much you could save while keeping your initiatives on track, visit nasuni.com/TCO. That's NASUNI.com/TCO. This is cool. And I did look up some dates, Scott. So this has been a long time coming. It was announced in May of 2023. It hit public preview in June of 2023, and it has been in public preview for the last 3 years. And it's still technically labeled preview, although we do have from Microsoft that general availability is planned. So, while it's still preview, this one is probably relatively safe to start using. Every once in a while, I had one of these recently, Scott, a preview feature that got deprecated and never made it to GA. It does happen.
It does. And 3 years is a long time to be in public preview. But yeah, I think I probably saw this like 2 years ago or so, maybe.
Okay.
And started playing around with it then. I mean, granted, I'm probably using it at way like a high level, but it seems to work. Like it does what it says. It does what it's
supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I almost like when you were starting to tell me about this, because I haven't used it, partly because being in the position I am with consulting and stuff, I don't tend to have a ton of collaboration around Power BI stuff. But it almost feels like when we made the move from the doc files to the docx files, where the doc files are kind of all self-encapsulated. Docx is, really just a zip file with a bunch of other files in it so that you can do the co-authoring and stuff in Word and all of that. This feels very similar where it was like PBIX was that self-contained PBIP, which is Power BI Project, Scott. That's where it comes from. I also saw that. It's the way you were describing it, it's very similar to that, where now it's just a container with a bunch of little files in it so that as you are doing that co-authoring, you're putting these in source control, it's able to go in and edit like individual files and do diffs a little bit better and all of that with that collaboration. So that was kind of the analogy that jumped out in my head. I'm like, okay, now it makes sense what those Power BI, PBIP, Power BI project files are.
There's still some proprietary stuff in there. So if you start digging into the folders and things like that, there's definitely parts that are kind of just custom binary format and not meant for you to use. But you can definitely get in there and start playing with these. super easy to get going with. They do recommend, and I don't know, I haven't used it with anything else other than like GitHub, but just Git repos. But you could do this with like a Git style repo in Azure DevOps, anything like that along the way. So now if you think like back to like, say like the agents thing. So you have one of these PBIP projects. You spin that up. When you do your check-in, let's say you are using Azure DevOps. So you do your check-in, you can have a pipeline run that goes and kind of validates things for you. And you could potentially have that pipeline run and invoke something like an MCP to go validate your schema, validate your DAX. Like you actually get a little bit more kind of like rigor and governance, I guess, around the release of these things as they come out, which is super nice to see, right? It kind of makes it a little bit more, I think, a little bit more like enterprise developer versus like enterprise power user kind of thing.
I agree. Power BI, it did seem to be very end user focused originally, where it was go install it on my desktop, create it there, I publish it up, I share it out to people. This is very much that collaborative development. Like you were talking about, I could even think if you had like scheduled agents that were running or scheduled tasks in your LLM that had to go in and do certain things in your Power BI report, publish it through a pipeline. I feel like this just greatly expands the flexibility and the ability aspects of what you can now start doing with some of these Power BI reports. Especially because people always like them to be up to date. And let's face it, when people build reports on data like this, they kind of want them to be accurate. So if you can use some of these tools as well, to your point, help ensure the accuracy, help ensure make sure everything is working properly, working the way it should. I think there's a lot of options here that you start getting. Or just the fact that now you can work on a report with your best friend. Scott, you and I can go work on reports together.
Best friend, your best AI agent, all those things.
Yeah, all the things.
I will say one of the, I guess, and I wonder for being in preview for 3 years now, like why this gap hasn't been filled more by Microsoft. So if you go and you read the documentation for this, it kind of stops at initialize a Git repo. So it tells you how to enable this. It tells you how to create the new folder structure format thing and get you spun up, and kind of how to do an initial load into a Git repo. But it leaves all the follow-on stuff. And I think the power of it, the versioning, CI/CD capabilities, things like that, just as an exercise to the reader. So you will have to go out and Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, Kage, whatever your search engine of choice is. If you're looking for like specific guidance on how to configure, say, like a CI/CD pipeline or some GitHub actions and wire them up around this, you're going to have to go like find that stuff and hope somebody blogged about it or figure it out and blog about it yourself, because that guidance doesn't exist from Microsoft. Yeah,
I was looking through this, and it is like that ends up with, here you go, initialize your Git repo. And then I was looking at one of the other ones, editing Power BI files externally, and it talks about how you can open them in Visual Studio Code. And it says, here's the button, just go open it in Visual Studio Code. It doesn't really give you like, okay, so once it's open in Visual Studio Code, what am I supposed to do with it? I now get access to the report and semantic model definition files, but what do I do from there? We'll say it also does call out to your earlier point, Scott, under some of the limitations is not all of those project files that you may see open up in Visual Studio Code or within this file support editing. It's not saying you blocks editing. Like there's some JSON files in there, a report, a mobile state, semantic model diagram layout where it's JSON. You could edit it in any text editor, but you might break it here because that's not supported in this. So there are other areas of the documentation too that I would go read before you just start editing some of those text-based files in there.
I think if you're actually going to do it like in a collaborative way too, like say you and I were kind of going back and forth on something, you do need to decide up front about kind of how you're going to approach isolation for like your changes versus my changes, things like that. And again, this is an area that like Microsoft doesn't have like discrete guidance for you or prescriptive guidance, but I think there's plenty out there in the community. So you can do things like you and I could be working in the same same report, same dashboard, but we could have isolated workspaces, effectively like a dev workspace for you, a dev workspace for me. Like if we were working in, say, like a Git repo, we'd want to do things like probably like a feature branch per workspace. So like I'm going to go spin up, like I'm going to go work on the new DAX measures for blah, blah, blah. You're going to go work on the visualizations for report page ABC kind of thing. So you do end up into, I think, more like the geeky like Git semantics that are out there. And again, that's where I'm more like enterprise developer than enterprise power user, if you do go down this path. But there's definitely like some nicety there. I think even if you're just like a solo person, right? You want to go and have kind of that like go forward, go back, replay logic that you get with things like a Git repo. Could be worth learning even for like the solo Power BI developer out there.
Yeah, because even though this is collaborative, I'm assuming because it is Git, you're still doing commits and branches and all of that. And you could still very much end up with a conflict if you and I both decide to go edit the same thing and change the same thing in the same file at the same time, where then you have to decide which change is better, my change or Scott's change.
Yours is always going to be better.
It's definitely something worth looking at if you're in Power BI a lot, if you and coworkers are working on Power BI reports and you want to take some or use some of that functionality. This is something I will probably do as well, just from I lose Power BI, the PBIX. I keep saying Power BI. I lose PBIX files, Scott, all the time. I'm like, where did I create it? Which desktop documents folder did I put it in? For whatever reason, because you have to save them locally and then publish them online, I'm always losing them. I'm like, you know what? If I just started doing this and had a Git repo with all my Power BI files or a Git repo per client where I'm creating these PBIP files, it would just greatly help, even to your point, as a solo person, with keeping track of my different Power BI reports and where kind of that source file is. Move them all into PBIP and GitHub.
I never even tried to convert one. Can you convert them?
I think you can. I think I saw the documentation in there.
I always just start in a modality and go from there.
PBIP, enable PB, save as a project. If you're working on a new project or you opened an existing Power BI desktop PBIX file, you can save your work as a Power BI project file. So you just do like the file save as. And then in the drop down for the save as type, you can switch it to PBIP.
That's an interesting. So like these tools are so all over the place. Like I don't think I ever use the save as dialog in Power BI once I initially create a project and I go and publish it. Once you publish it, it just asks you to save again. Like, do you want to save this before you publish it to the service? Yeah, I want to save it. So I would never see the save as dialog.
Now you can go use the save as. Because I did see, I think somewhere in this documentation, it does say that PBIP is going to, I'm assuming once it hits GA, turn into the default file type.
I would imagine, right? Like that would be kind of like the happy path for these things to go on, is let it just be the default state. And it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like it's going to be a set of files and folders locally, or it's going to be a monolithic thing. Arguably better just have it be the files and folders locally. And then if you want to push to Git and be done with it.
Exactly. Just like we did with, I'm going to go back to my Office analogy, just like we did where Doc and XLS and PPT and the other ones all switched. They just added an X there. Not to confuse you, because in Power BI, it had an X and then it went to a P. Naming, even when it comes to file types, can be hard.
Such is life.
Yep. All right, Scott. With that, we are coming up on our...
We got some new MCP servers, some new stuff for folks to go play with in Power BI.
And we have meetings coming up that we should probably go to keep people happy. I do. I don't know if you do. I have a meeting coming up.
I do. I'm going to roll from this one just into my next and let's go. We'll have to come back sometime and revisit the whole LLM wiki thing, because like I went down your path and built like a whole dashboard for mine, and I went a little wild on the side. But
do you have any tokens left?
Yes, I have tokens left.
Yeah, we will, because I keep expanding. I keep trying to... I need to actually get work done instead of playing with what can I build with AI and my LLM wiki and all this other stuff. I tend to get a little distracted with that. So we will come back to that. But for those of you listening, if you do play with these, have any other thoughts or anything about Power BI and MCP servers in Power BI or PBIP, would love to hear from you. LinkedIn or Reddit. We've had some more conversations lately on Reddit as well. So I would say those are probably the two social media platforms you and I are both the most active on, is either LinkedIn or...
Certainly for the podcast. That's a great place to find us. Yep.
Join us over there.
And it's been really good to have the feedback over on Reddit. So folks should keep that coming.
For sure. And if you are going to be at TechCon 365 in Seattle this week, this will come out Thursday morning. I will be there Thursday and Friday. So if you're there and you want to say hi, come say hi to me. Scott won't be there. Sad face.
I will not be at TechCon. Yeah. Outside my wheelhouse these days.
Yeah, not so much Azure storage blob stuff there. But for now, go enjoy your Monday, Scott. Get some work done. Enjoy the puppy. And we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Ben.
If you enjoyed the podcast, go leave us a 5-star rating in iTunes. It helps to get the word out so more IT pros can learn about Office 365 and Azure. If you have any questions you want us to address on the show or feedback about the show, feel free to reach out via our website, Twitter, or Facebook. Thanks again for listening and have a great day.